that's a combination of many different things. Normally it is like a combination of live performances, concerts, then there's some installations, and then I do a lot of some workshops as well in different places, and then I do a lot of field recordings in different, normally, typically nature, wilderness and other things, and those are related to the creation of musical works or releases and performances as well. So it's a combination of all these different things. I also live in different places, and I've been living in different places for a long time, so it's combined all of these different activities. I lived in Costa Rica, United States, in Montreal, different places. It's always the same reason, a woman. No, work is I can work anywhere now, luckily for me, because right now it's the base, it's basically just a base. I don't work in the Netherlands. Sometimes I do some things, but I don't have a job in the Netherlands. But I do, I work all over the world really, and it's been like that for a number of years now. So the only thing I need is not to be too far away from an airport, because then it will be very inconvenient.
At the beginning of April, you released an audiovisual intervention called Secret Show. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, perhaps I shouldn't say much about it, because it's supposed to be secret. It's not secret anymore in the context of the festival, of the Fierce Festival in Birmingham, where that took place. This is, in short, this is a collaboration with an artist friend from Cape Town, South Africa, and we've been organizing these sort of kidnap shows, voluntary kidnap shows, where the audience doesn't know where they're going, they don't know what's going to happen, and they don't know what is the only thing they know is that they're going to go through an experience that is, of course, is sort of guaranteed, that their safety is guaranteed, it's nothing too crazy, and they have an approximate idea of the length of time, a couple of hours, and then they know they're going to be taken somewhere in the city, but they don't know where. And the way we do it, this is the third time we do it. We did it first time in Cape Town, then in Copenhagen, and then just a few weeks ago in Birmingham. And so what they know is they have a meeting point in the city in small groups. Not all the audience are at the same time in the same place. So the small groups of people, 2, 4 people, they don't know how many other people are involved in this. Then they are blindfolded, and then they're taken in a car to another location in the city. This location is typically space. We've done these things normally in like sort of industrial space, warehouses. And then we have a setup there for like an immersive sound performance, but they don't know what that is. And there's no announcement before, during, or after the performance. And then they're taken back to the original location. And that's the end of the experience. And then they're given a piece of paper with some information of future explanation of what happened.
You have recently released a new album called Titans.
Well, that was a collaboration with a Greek artist, and we did a project in the region of Olympia, in the west of Greece, and we did recordings in different locations, nature mostly, and then we created different pieces from the same set of recordings that we both share, and we did together. And in fact, we presented that project originally in Greece last year, in a live concert in one of the amphitheaters in Olympia. Then there was after that there was a release on CD, which is the announcement that was the presentation of this CD release. 2 double CD releases of compilations of short pieces from 2009, 2010, into different labels in France, in Russia. Then there's another collaboration with an artist from the Basque Country, and we did a project together with recordings of power plants in the Basque Country, Spain. There's a new release that is going to be launched today, released by Störung, the label who organizes this festival. And this is a DVD, audio and book release. So it features my contribution to that release. Is a collaboration with a visual artist from London. His name is Paul Prudence, and he works with real-time generative video. So we've been doing for the past, I think, 3 years, a collaboration that we've done live in different performances, where the live video feeds from the audio, and all the parameters and the changes of the audio, of the video live, depend on the audio. So this is, in fact, this is something we're doing in 2 weeks from now. We're doing this live in a planetarium in Denver, in Colorado.
Is it easy to find a label dedicated to such experimental music and sound art?
No, there are thousands of labels called GH Records. It's a label from Valencia in Spain. Then there's Alone at Last is the name of a record label from Moscow. Then there's Ferns Recordings in Paris. This is a label that released that project in the Basque Country. Then there's, I don't know, Touch in England. There's Staalplaat in the Netherlands. There's really literally thousands. There were many labels on cassette, underground labels. And then after, of course, you have also with CDs, first CDRs and then now CDs, labels, very small labels that do very small runs, very small editions. And there are literally thousands. The only thing is that now CDs basically they don't sell. And I mean, for this scale of production, it's never been, of course, a business because the editions are very, very small. But now, you know, CDs are really discredited completely in terms of the format. And this is sort of a cultural thing, really. But they don't sell. So what happens is that the pace of releasing for a lot of these small labels has slowed down dramatically. So what happens typically is that it takes a long time since you make the thing, the final master and the agreement or whatever, until you see the CD out in maybe 2 years, sometimes 3 years. So it's a very slow pace. And then distribution, it's reduced dramatically compared to like 10 years ago.
As a description of your live performances, you often use the word immersion. Can you describe more what's the difference between live performance and immersion?
Well, the idea of immersion, it's actually a very old idea, immersion. And old meaning the ancient times. But in this context, is to me, I normally work with multi-channel systems. That means a number of speakers around the audience, and not only in the front of the audience, but also, you know, all around. In fact, rarely I perform on stage. Normally I have a completely different arrangement of the space where I'm typically in the center of the space, but people are facing outwards, not looking to what I'm doing. And also this means that normally, whenever I can, I have a circular array of seats in the space. And the audience are basically facing the speakers or facing outwards. And then, so you have, first thing, no directionality because there's no stage. People are not looking at somebody doing whatever he's doing. Second thing, there's no video, no projection. And third thing, I provide blindfolds for the audience. So the audience as an option. And then, so typically the audience is blindfolded, they don't see, and therefore they can hear much better, obviously. And also the multi-channel system. And perhaps even more important is that I work during the live performance. I work in a very site-specific way. I don't have a performance that is ready and then I do it in different spaces. What I do is a recombination, a live recombination and mix, and a specialization of sound, depending on the space and depending on the sound system. These two things are obviously different anywhere you go, and I work with the specificity of the space and the sound system in each single space and each single situation.
Are there some features which you would say they are the most reflected in your sound pieces?
I guess so, yeah, like anybody else, of course, yeah. I like, for example, the structure of crescendos and decrescendos and what I call gates of sound, meaning sudden cuts, surprises, sudden changes that take the listener by surprise in different ways and measure it carefully. So you don't have... I try to go to limits sometimes, to limits of intensity, which is not necessarily volume. It's more a question of working with frequencies, actually. The balance between different frequencies is almost exclusively field recordings. But then, as I said before, for me, field recordings are a way to have interesting material, variety of materials, natural complexity, natural structures that I can work with, and that's the reason to work with. I'm not able to simulate that diversity, complexity, and all those things with synthesis, for example. Today you can synthesize a lot of things. You could be able to generate just with the computer a lot of different things. This is true, but still reality has conditions that are very difficult to simulate. And why simulate something when you have it there?
Do you have a favorite sound?
I think it's a matter of taste, of really personal taste. I like insects. I've done of many different kinds. I do lots of hydrophone recordings underwater that I find very appealing. I am not interested in birds, for example, which particularly, I have nothing against birds, but I'm not, for unknown reasons. What I'm mentioning this example because a lot of people doing natural recordings, it's predominant to have bird recordings. And I think this is a matter of personal taste. I've done a lot of work in non-natural sounds with machines, for example. And in fact, the concert today and the concert tomorrow are based on exclusively on recordings of machines, mechanical machines, repetition, the mechanical repetition of natural machines. Natural meaning not music design machines. And that I like, very, very fond of that material as well.
Regarding sound art as any other art discipline, is it possible to distinguish some current popular tendencies?
What I think is happening today is an accumulation, historical accumulation of trends. For example, improvisation, free improvisation, started not so long ago. There's a tradition of improvisation in music and jazz, etc. But free improvisation as an aesthetic practice is not that old, and it is still today around in festivals of improvisation, together with, for example, so-called noise. Noise as an aesthetic category of music, extreme music or whatever.
I do often face the rejective comments of my friends who come to listen to sound art piece for the first time that it's just a noise. How do you explain to such people the difference between the regular noise sounds and the work you do?
Because virtually anybody I know who has an interest for this experimental music, I don't think it comes from I don't believe in proselytism or education in this sense. I think most of the people I know who have any without the need of any explanation. Of course you can explain things about this, and of course you can change, you can modulate, you can provide more information and more, you can expose people to listen to different artists, you can do, of course. But if somebody has no interest whatsoever in this kind of stuff, I don't think it's going to work. And I've seen this many, many times with a lot of people, and I don't think it can work. Mm. I remember the first time I heard jazz music in my life. I was very small, very little. I think I was maybe like 4 or 5, I can't remember exactly. But I remember that I saw a concert on television as a kid. And that was the first time in my life that I would be hearing this. And I didn't know what it was, but I was totally fascinated. It's like, I had no reference of anything. This is not experimental music, but at the time, for me, it was like the most strange thing it was really strange, but incredibly appealing. Mm-hmm. And without knowing what it was, and there was no experience of music in my family, I was like totally fascinated and drawn to it immediately. This is an anecdote, it's an example of what I think it happens to a lot of people who like experimental music.
Also, you work as a teacher at the university, giving lectures and leading workshops. I was mainly impressed by the workshop in the Amazonian forest in Brazil. How does this workshop look like?
It's a region south of Manaus, in the center of the Amazon. And what we do is it's about sound creation and listening and recording of the rainforest. The rainforest or nature in general. The topics are very wide and they depend how we work, what we discuss about depends on the participants really. I have a series of planned activities. We do lots of field recordings day and night. Every night we go in the rainforest and we do recordings every day, several times. So of course, obviously, because people who come to this workshop, they have a lot of interest in field recordings, and of course because of the intensity and the fascination of the rainforest. So we do lots of field recordings. We also do presentations, talks that are designed to trigger discussion. And one of my main questions to discuss about is, why are we doing this exactly? What is the main purpose of this practice? Why are we recording these things? Or when we record these things, what do we have in the recordings? Is this like a good representation of the place? Is representation in the recordings a good goal for this activity? Why come to this place? Do one thing or another thing. It might change the way you work in the field, depending on what it is for you to do this. So all of these questions we discuss collectively. And of course every artist will do a presentation.
You are originally Spanish but living all over the world. Do you think that Spanish local sound art scene has enough support compared to the conditions in other places?
There's a lot of people in Spain, in different institutions, organizations, where they are now in a position to take decisions, to organize events, to decide who is doing something, performing sound installations, or whatever it is. And also they have started to, this new generation has started to have some kind of critical view on things. The new generation, they have a bit more information than previous generations on their background and a little bit of knowledge of the historical context of sound art, experimental music, in larger numbers, more people than before. A few years ago, there was like very few people in this country. They were artists, of course, but now it is changing in a social sense. It's changing, and that is the before, years ago, it was much more institutionalized. So it was very difficult to do a performance or do something. Very difficult. Now things have changed, and this is the major change that I see in Spain. A delay, in my opinion, a delay of this process compared to Europe, Central and Northern Europe, or compared to North America. A delay of maybe 10 years, and then I'm not sure if catching up with that will be equivalent soon or not. This I'm not sure, but the delay was there, and fortunately this is changing now.